Step on up, sit down, twist off that bottle top, or crack open that can. And welcome to Porch Matters. This is Terry Cagle coming to you from my back porch. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am, the name of this show is authentic. On Porch Matters, our saying is this: big issues are just friendly conversation. Nothing is off limits. We take pride in being able to talk about anything with each other in an open discussion. Open discussion is one of the only ways to learn. Your perspective could be changed. You could change the perspective of others. I would like to just take a minute and thank the fine folks at Red Bull for their contribution to the show. Without them, this intro would not be possible. No, they ain't a sponsor, but they did come out with a fantastic watermelon-flavored energy drink that has helped me stay awake long enough to get home from a long night of work and to record this intro. All of you listening, please look and find the share button on whichever platform you are listening to us on, and share the show with your friends and family on social media. Go through our past episodes and share your favorites. Please encourage others in your circle to subscribe and download the shows. I really would appreciate it. On this episode, Jason joins me on the porch and we have a conversation about what's on our TVs lately. We also discuss Wonder Woman 1984. What we liked about it, what we didn't like about it. I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, let's get started. Jason, how in the world are you, my friend? How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. Just staying steady.
Staying steady, huh?
Yeah, steady state.
I was worried that 2021 might look at 2020 and say, hold my beer.
Well, we're just now getting started, so we'll have to see what happens.
In my life personally, it didn't say hold my beer. It said hold my margarita, and I'm already about 3 in, and I'm going to dance on the table for you. That's what it's done for me. Hopefully this year gets a whole lot better. Right now, it ain't looking that good. Have you been watching anything on TV lately?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
What you been watching?
I've been WandaVision, man. I was pumped about that.
You've been pumped about WandaVision for quite some time, since pretty much since they announced it. And I know that I hadn't had a chance to talk to you, but I knew as soon as they started releasing them, I figured you was going to be like a fat kid in a candy shop.
Oh, every Friday. As soon as we sit down, everything's got to be done. We watch WandaVision. And I'm one of these guys who I'll watch the things on YouTube and look at some of the theories and I love it. I love it. I just do. I enjoy it. And I'm very pleased. They've done a good job so far, in my opinion.
Well, I'm only 2 episodes into it. I hadn't caught any of the other ones, but how do you see the series going? Is it? I think I've read somewhere about how they've said that it was basically going to be the launching point for Phase 4.
Yes, as far as that goes, when you look at what they're doing with Spider-Man and Sony's doing by kind of bringing in the concept of the Spider-Verse, which is a multiverse type of a thing, and the fact that the Doctor Strange film is supposed to be the multiverse of madness, and you and I both know in Marvel Comics and DC Comics, the multiverse is a normal thing. It's something that is an everyday thing. I believe they will. Wanda Maximoff's character is extremely powerful, and she has reality warping capabilities. And the comic storylines they're taking this from, I think, seem to be falling in place to where, there's going to be some type of total breakdown, which will tear the fabric, so to speak.
Well, that fits right along with the Age of Ultron comic story, too.
It does. The Age of Ultron comic story, basically Ultron wins, and then, they're looking at how are we going to change this? What are we going to do? He's beat us. And they come up with the idea they got a hold of some Dr. Doom tech, and they're like, okay, we're going to go back in time. And, then you're opening up different realities, different timelines. The comic story, the Marvel story, House of M, deals with that. And some of the aspects of the show play into that. So, but overall, the storylines have been entertaining. It's different from your typical Marvel or MCU movie because there's a lot more comedy. Um, and just, I mean, basically, they're set up to in fabricated sitcoms starting from the 50s, then into the 60s, then into the 70s. And so it's definitely different, and I like that. You kind of get tired of the same old, same old.
Have you watched Cobra Kai on Netflix yet?
I have not watched that. I have not watched.
It needs to be your next series. It really does. I know as a child of the 80s, I know you grew up loving the Karate Kid movies.
Man, yeah, I did. That was a big, big movie in the mid 80s. I mean, there was nothing worse than watching guys in skeleton costumes chase the Karate Kid around a gym. But, it was just a good story. It was a very good story.
It was a very good story. And the way they have took that story, kindly brought it forward, and then added a newer generation into it. It's, in all honesty, to me, it's just great storytelling, and it's an awesome show. Highly recommend it if you hadn't already watched it.
I don't want to, since I haven't seen it, I don't want to, and I know some other people probably haven't either, I don't want to throw too many spoilers out there. But am I correct that most of the characters from the original, or the first two movies, play a part?
Most of your main characters, yes.
Okay. What are
they still
the same?
Even some of the guys that was, let's see, Daniel, of course, Johnny, of course, Daniel's mother, Johnny's friends, Bobby, and all of them. They make a cameo in a scene or in an episode or two. Kreese, season 2, even Chosen, Kumiko from from the second one, and Allie or Elizabeth Shue actually makes a 1 episode appearance as well. So, yeah, pretty much all of your big guns out of the movie, for lack of better terms, so far have made it, other than Miyagi. And, well, I think Mr. Morita's actually passed away now, but
he is, yes.
Yeah, in the series they talk about how he's passed. But yeah,
okay.
But like I said, it's really good storytelling, and I can't recommend it enough, especially if you're fans of the movies.
Is everybody from the originals, the original characters from the films, do they pretty much stick to their character type, or do they any of them go through changes?
Well, you got to remember, Cobra Kai is actually told from more of a perspective of Johnny versus Daniel.
Okay.
And on top of that, it's 30 years past, me and you ought to be able to relate to that. I've been out of high school fixing to be 21 years. I ain't the same guy that I was in high school. So, in real life, everybody changes. So
they should. You hope they do.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the better.
Spoiler alert, one of Johnny's friends in there that was actually on the motorcycles riding around, helped beating up Daniel and everything in one, he's actually a preacher in one. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah. Every character has changed, just like we all do in life. As we get older, we change.
Right.
If you don't evolve, you die, right?
That's true. You get I'm not sure quite what that Darwinian rule is, but you do.
Stacy's actually been talking up some shows too. She's really into one called Outlander. It's about a woman that gets sent back in time and does different stuff. I think it's on Stars. And she's also been looking forward to a show called Men in Kilts and another one called Spanish Princess. I have no idea what Men in Kilts are.
She must have thing about Scottish people then, because Highlanders is a Scottish,
Yeah,
not Highlander, Outlander is a
Outlander.
Scottish based, or
Mhm.
that's the, and then of course Men in Kilts. Who else is that but Scottish people?
Yeah. One of the lead characters out of the Outlanders was actually the antagonist in Bloodshot.
Okay, I did not know that.
Well, there again, the show is not only entertaining, but it's educational and informative.
Educational. Well, what did you think of the first two episodes of WandaVision?
I'm not near as into it as you are. I had trouble with it. It kind of felt like the Pacquiao Mayweather boxing fight. A lot of hype, but I just didn't feel like those two episodes delivered. I didn't get the chance to really delve deep into them. I'm going to rewatch them again, especially knowing what I know now. Maybe I can appreciate them a little bit better. I do know that Wanda looked really good in that magician's outfit.
Yes, she did. She didn't look bad. What was Vision's name? Was he was Illusion and she was Glamour or something like that?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, there was some good comedy stuff in it, but I wasn't expecting I Love Lucy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they and that's what kind of one of the interesting aspects of it is it comes on in the first two episodes. You're like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
Um, and by the time you watch the third episode, you start to realize you start to get a better grasp of where Wanda is and where her mind is, and the people in the town where their minds are, and Sword that basically where they are. One of the theories on this whole thing has been that Mephisto, who is basically the Marvel character that kind of represents the devil. He's not the devil, but he is a devil, and and he plays a role in Marvel's House of M story as far as Wanda's children go. And if you remember in episode 2, it was very heavily weighted toward children. They kept repeating for the children, for the children. And then there was a reference like when the guy Herb, the black guy, when they're in their neighborhood watch meeting and he hands Vision the gum, he goes, "Would you like some Big Red?"
Yeah.
And then there was another part where Dottie, who's kind of the head of the socialites, makes the statement that the devil's in the details. And Agnes, who is the obsessed neighbor, seems to be obsessed with Wanda, leads over and says, "That's not the only place he is." So it seems to be leading to the possibility that Mephisto may play a part in this, but that could be actually just leading you down a rabbit trail.
Right.
That may not be the case.
Right. Did you see the trailer for the new Godzilla versus Kong?
Yes, I did.
What do you think about that? I'm jacked up for that movie.
I'm excited because I was really kind of questioning when it comes to Kong. I'm like, oh man, how is he going to handle Godzilla? How is this going to work? And I think we're going to see a much more powerful Kong than what we're used to. And I think, Godzilla in the first two movies was basically the savior of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for some reason, of course, he's attacking Kong, and it kind of leads you to believe in the trailer that there's something that set him off, that there's been some kind of I don't know, ancient war.
Yeah.
And they're the last two standing of their kind. That's an interesting concept I never thought of.
It's a setup from the last Godzilla movie. Because remember, whenever they're talking about the other monsters, at the end,
Yes.
During the credits, they bring up Kong in the credits.
Yes.
During the credits is where this is set up, because those are the last two of the big monsters.
So basically, from what I'm getting from it, and this goes back, past ancient times, you had the predominant, I guess, most powerful of the monsters was either Godzilla's race or Kong's race. Those were your two powerhouse races, and everything else kind of fell in line with them.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying. Who was the villain in the second Godzilla?
I can't remember the name. It was the three-headed one.
The three-headed one. King Ghidorah.
Yeah.
King Ghidorah.
I think Mothra was in it.
Mothra. Yes.
There was two or three other ones because at the end of it, Godzilla was the only one standing.
Right. I think King Ghidorah actually came from outer space. Was not native to the planet Earth. I remember that in that movie. They kind of revealed that. So, in a way, I guess that kind of shows that he's an interloper who's trying to become the dominant force. But the native species to this planet that were the dominant forces were Godzilla and the Kong race, which
I'm looking very much forward to seeing them two go at it.
I am too.
I'm almost as jacked up about this as I was when I heard Freddy versus Jason was going to be a reality.
You remember how big that was?
Oh God, yes, it was huge.
Yeah. Yes,
and that started from the Jason Goes to Hell movie. Whenever the two companies merged and they finally had the rights to both characters. Right there at the end, all you seen was Freddy's hand come up, grab Jason's mask, and come down. And that was all it was. That's all it was.
Yep.
And you didn't hear about it for years, and then they finally did it.
Right. Yeah, it took them about 4 or 5 years, maybe longer, to make that happen. Mm-hmm. But when they did, I'll be honest with you, I went to the theater and saw it. And every now and then on Halloween, they'll show the horror movies. As far as, I never was a big Freddy fan. I was always terrified of Jason. But, that was probably my favorite film that had Freddy or Jason in it.
Yeah. I like Jason X.
Yeah, I like that too.
I really got into Jason X. I really loved Uber Jason.
Yeah.
You remember whenever I loved that version. I wanted to see him run with that version, and then all of a sudden it just went away. And right after that, you got Freddy versus Jason, and then they did that remake, and I really wasn't all that fond of the remake.
It was okay. To me, it grounded it a little bit more in reality, but the acting was not a thing to behold. And then they just dropped. That was it. No more.
Yeah. Whenever you talk about they normalized it or whatever, when they started showing the tunnels underneath the camp, it was like you're ruining Jason for me. Jason and Michael Myers, to me, they might as well be the same guy. They're the boogeyman. Don't matter how fast you run, whatever. They're going to slow walk you down, and then they're going to kill you.
Well, and they're really, in a way, they're voiceless, personalityless. They're like a great white shark. They're a force of nature. There's nothing in them but kill.
Right.
That's it. And that's what makes them the scariest.
Right. I like Freddy, but I'm like you. I never really was a big Freddy guy. I mean, he had some cool one-liners. The glove was always cool. Yeah, but I was a Jason and a Michael guy.
Oh, I was too. I enjoyed watching Michael Myers, but I was more afraid of Jason Voorhees, because at least with Michael, there was the possibility that you could get away, or you could possibly kill him, possibly shoot him just enough to kill him. With Jason, you're not getting away, and he's coming through that door full speed. That's what was the scariest to me about him.
You're not stopping Jason.
No,
you might slow him down, but you ain't stopping him.
No, but you ain't stopping him. Yeah, I wish they had done a better job. I know they were just milking it for money. It was an easy cash cow, but I wish they could have done a better job explaining, even though it was, no, it's not going to be believable. It's not going to be grounded in reality. Give us some kind of an explanation on what this guy, basically, who's a walking cadaver, is indestructible. Give us something to go on. They tried to do that, like you said, in Jason Goes to Hell, and I thought that was lame. Oh God, it was lame.
I couldn't get into that one.
I couldn't either.
You've seen how Warner Brothers is starting to announce everything is getting released on HBO Max as well as in the theaters. Mm-hmm. We kind of called that already in a previous episode.
Yeah.
What do you think about it? How do you think this is going to impact the theaters?
I think it's one more blow to the theaters. I think it impacts everybody. I think it impacts the actors. It impacts directors. It impacts producers. It impacts the theaters for sure, because basically HBO is saying, listen, we can make these movies, and if you want to be in the movie and make some money, this is what we'll pay you. And we can put it on HBO Max, and it don't cost us a thing. We don't got to distribute it to nobody if we don't want to. So, of course, the gamble is, how will that affect the total income for HBO as far as what are normally blockbuster films that bring in a big box office? That I don't know. But I think they're trying to see into the future, not just the fact that post-pandemic, you may have people that just decide, hey, I'd rather stay at home and watch the film. It's cheaper, it's easier, it's safer, it's more efficient. I don't have to drive somewhere and pay $25 for a bag of popcorn. I think they're banking on that, and I think they're banking on, listen, this could be the future model. Let's get out ahead of everybody, and then we have more control. We don't, somebody wants to come to us and demand this salary or this payoff because they think there's going to be $1 billion box office. We got more control over what we spend out, because we can say, well, there's going to be a limit here. So, I think it puts more power in their hands, and how it affects their income, I don't know, because I think theaters are in trouble.
I think theaters are in trouble too. At the same time, I think going to like a subscription-based platform like HBO Max is, like Disney Plus is. Let's give Disney credit where credit deserved. They were the first one to try this. Mm-hmm. Granted, their idea, in theory, kind of made sense to them, but it blew up with them whenever it came to Mulan.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like the way Warner Brothers did it a whole lot better than I like the way Disney did it, because not only were you subscribing to Disney Plus, you also had to pay $30 extra.
Yeah, and that. No.
Whereas with this, you're already paying like $10 or $15 as it is. It's a subscription-based platform, but just same way Vince McMahon did with the WWE Network. He'll give you a month for free or whatever just to get you to sign up, because there's more on that app, just like with Disney Plus, than just those movies. Mm-hmm. That's a good way to get you to subscribe, but then once you get involved in other stuff, you're going to stick around.
Oh yeah.
So they're looking at it, I think, as an investment for what they're doing right now for the present as well as the future. Because I believe COVID is going to be here to stay? Yeah, it kind of looks that way. I mean, I think it's going to end up being something like the flu. We're going to adapt and we're going to move forward. You ain't going to get rid of the flu. You're unfortunately, never going to get rid of this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
it's going to become whatever it is. So going forward, now you've just got two options. You can go to the theater if you want to, but you can also go on this app and watch it too.
For the experience, you're going to get more impact from the theater.
Yeah, I plan on going and watching it in the theater, but I can come home and rewatch it if I want to.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? I don't want to have to pay the extra money to be able to go in and watch it. Now versus how many times did you go to a theater back in the day, watch a movie, love it, then want to turn around and have to go back to the theater the next week or whatever to watch it again?
Correct. Because if you didn't, you were going to have to wait 6 months to a year before it came out where you could rent it and watch it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something else that you need to look at too. If they're going ahead and releasing stuff like that now, they're already recording it in digital. If they can release it now on these streaming services and everything like that, you're not going to have to wait near as long to be able to get a copy of it from like an Amazon Prime or whatever. You won't have to wait that 6 months to a year like we used to anymore.
There again, that shifts power from the studio's hands into the consumer's hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have those options now. We can be like, no, I'm not going to pay the price of the theater. Or we can decide this is an event film. We're going to go see it at the theater.
Mm-hmm.
But we have the option.
Right.
So I think, yeah, you make a good point there with that. That's another avenue it opens up. Whether or not Disney follows suit, I don't know yet. I thought they might, but it's still looking like they're holding out.
Of course they're going to hold out. Look at the money that they generated through the theaters and everything else with just the Marvel movies alone.
Oh,
Look at the last Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course they're going to hold out. Why?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to take the gamble on just their app. If they do the Marvel movies like they did Mulan, I think it's going to be a huge backlash, even though they've got a humongous fan base for it.
Well, and then you said for Mulan, and this is true, they were charging $30
extra.
If you're going to pay $30, you're just going to say, "Well, I'm just going to go to the movies."
Yeah,
I'm not paying that at the movies.
Either that, or I'm just going to wait until it comes out on Blu-ray.
Yeah, exactly. Or wait until the streaming service in a few months just puts it on for free because it's one of their movies.
Exactly.
I think you're going to see they're going to have to make films cheaper and more cost effective because revenues are going to go down. You're not going to see the billion or $1.2 billion films.
No, I think those days are coming to an abrupt halt, especially over the pandemic. Now, once everything gets handled on that, possibly, maybe. But,
yeah,
you know, you remember seeing those reports about how Tom Cruise was going crazy over some of his film crew on that last film that he was doing. I don't know, Bubba. I guess time will tell.
And that's the thing, you know, it's kind of like whenever there's a movie that's going to be coming out, we look at the different theories and try to figure it out. And in the end, we're not going to know till we see it. We're not going to know till we get on the other side of this thing what the new reality is. We're just not going to know.
We're having to live in the present.
Yep, we are being present. Yes.
Did you get a chance to enjoy Wonder Woman 84?
As a matter of fact, I did.
How'd you watch it? Did you watch it in the theater or did you go and watch it on the app?
I watched it on HBO Max.
As did I. I did not go to the theater and watch it. I was like, well, I'm already paying for HBO Max. I might as well just sit here and watch it.
I had a friend that let me pirate his HBO Max. So, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I put that out there to the feds.
Well, I'm sure that friend is not only a handsome fella, but a real good-natured fella as well.
On certain days, some days of the week.
Which days would that be? Any of them ending in Y?
Got
him.
Okay, you got me. I don't know what to say.
Well,
I appreciate you letting me use it.
No problem. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm assuming. Did you enjoy the movie?
That's the thing.
Here we go. Okay, Marvel fella, what didn't you like about it?
Okay, and now I'm trying because and you and I have had this conversation for about a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel and DC are different. You can't judge one by the other.
No,
they're their own thing. So I try not to do that because I can appreciate the first superheroes I ever saw were DC superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of weird because the first villains I ever saw were Marvel villains that I remember. But no, I've got some complaints about the film. I got to be honest with you. I guess. Now, I'm not going to trash it. The film is worth seeing. It wasn't that I see where I would not tell someone don't see it, but my personal preferences are the problems I have with it.
Well, I thought the movie was great. I really liked that the director of the first Wonder Woman did this one as well. I'm really hoping that she stays at the helm for future movies. This one had a feel to me like the old Wonder Woman TV show. They even had a cameo with Linda Carter in it herself. Thought that Jeff Johns did a fantastic job in writing the script. He's the go-to writer and everything for the DC universe. Any of these big stories that you find or that you come across, example, the latest Watchmen series, Watchmen versus Justice League, that was Jeff Johns. He's a very good writer, very good storyteller, knows the DC universe inside and out, partly because he's wrote most of it. So him being in there, to me, kept as much continuity to the story that could be. So I was impressed by that. Barbara / Cheetah was a decent representation of the character. It fit the story that they were trying to tell. It wasn't a total accurate depiction of the character, but it was a whole lot closer than I have seen other characters get introduced. You know, me and you have had that argument about different movies several times because me and you, we read the comics. We believe that the best source material that these guys can pull from is the comics, and they shouldn't be trying to mix 5, 6, 7 different comic stories into one movie. That's stupid.
Right.
My opinion. But I really liked the way that she got brought in. It made sense for the movie. To me, the best villains in the comics and everything are the ones that come in thinking that their perspective is the right perspective, that they're on the side of right. You know, we've talked about that. I thought Pedro played Max Lord very well. I really enjoyed watching his character go through the movie. You know, he just started out as a guy that was just trying to make something of himself for his son. Who can't relate to that? I really enjoyed the movie overall. What was some of your complaints about it?
I have really no complaints about the acting. I felt like the acting was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think Gal Gadot does as good a job as anybody could with the character. Of course, Chris Pine's going to do a good job in anything he's playing. He is a good actor.
Yeah, very solid.
Very solid. Kristen Wiig, to be honest with you, I would have liked to have seen, and maybe because I'm expecting it from her, I would have liked to have seen at first maybe a little bit more comedy, a little bit more of her signature comedy, because she is a very funny lady. But I felt like as it went on, she played the character well because she was a quote unquote villain, but you didn't hate her.
Mm.
She was a believable villain, you know, because you could kind of say, well, I could see this. I can see why.
In a way, she was a sympathetic villain.
She was a sympathetic villain. Maxwell Lord, I'll be honest with you, I thought he was a sympathetic villain.
As did I.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, he was a good amalgamation of what I remember seeing during the 80s. You had a lot of guys who were into not just the positive thinking stuff. It was a new concept, but they were selling, and I think of the televangelist. I think of Carlton Sheets. You know, I can see a little bit of dabbling in there with Donald Trump University, and, you know, Trump the performer. You know, I'm on TV.
I saw a lot of Baker in him.
You know, maybe Swaggart too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Swaggart with the showmanship. But, you know, I remember seeing those guys on infomercials and selling stuff and, you know, telling everybody they could get rich. You can get rich if you do this. Yeah. You can get rich. I remember that well.
That's
But
what that's what I was telling you before. He came across to me as a televangelist.
he came across to me as a guy trying to sell you something that was going to make you rich. Not that he's getting rich all of it, but I'm gonna make you rich if you'll buy this.
With it being set in '84, I'm surprised he didn't mention Amway.
I think Amway has enough money; they would have shut that production down. But
It took him a minute to catch that, folks.
yeah. But I thought Pedro Pascal, he's a good actor. He did good. My problems with it were I felt like it didn't have a really good flow to it. It could have flowed a little bit better. Some of the lesser characters that I thought were just a little too stereotypical. I hated the scene with the jewelry heist guys because they were just ridiculous. They were absolutely ridiculous, and maybe that's how they were supposed to be. And I know you got to understand. This is the 80s. You got to think if this movie was being made in the 80s, that's how those guys would be. So I get that. Also, and I've told you this for many years, you know this, if I'm going to see a DC film, I want it to be raining all the time. I want it to be overcast or cloudy, and I want it to be, I want the good guy to lose most of the film. Because I love the darker edge of DC. Love it. To me, the darker edge of DC is as good as any drama you can put out there. It's the No Countries for Old Men of comic movies. And they're smart to do this. I think Warner Brothers, and this was my complaint for Aquaman, I think they have, getting away from Zack Snyder's kind of vision, they have gone with a little bit more positive, a little bit more upbeat, sunny, family friendly almost. And there's nothing wrong with that version. And, that doesn't do it for me. I want to watch something, even some of the Marvel films that were lacking. I mean, I want to say like Captain Marvel. Well, Captain Marvel was good. It was entertaining, but it's way down on my list because it was a little bit more family friendly, had a little bit more of a good vibe to it, positive vibe. And the negative, or not the negative, I shouldn't say the negative, but the darker, more tragic comics always appealed to me more personally. I was always a Punisher guy. But saying that, that's why I say I would not tell anyone don't see this film. Because it's fun, it's entertaining, it's a good film. It's not a bad film. For me, it wasn't my cup of tea. And, I felt like a little bit of the storyline could have flowed better so you could get a better grasp of what this, but, I don't know what, we're still in the throes of where's the DCEU going? What's Warner Brothers? So we're still in that. So it's so difficult for me after 22 Marvel films where everything flows together in a linear line. It's hard for me to say, okay, well, where's this going? I can't predict it. I don't know. That's DC for you. Hell, they had Superman comics where there were 5 different Supermen, but that was DC. That's their style.
With the same Superman at one point in time before Action Comics number 75, which is still the best-selling comic of all time, The Death of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
There was 4 different comics telling the same story building up to that. They met once a year to talk about what each one was going to be doing for that year. That year, they couldn't come up with anything. One guy that mentioned like 2 or 3 times, let's just kill him. The only idea that they could really come up with was they were going to let Lois and Clark get married. At that time, the Lois and Clark TV show was going on. They didn't want to mess anything up with it.
Right.
So they shelved letting them get married in the comics. Then that dude mentioned again, let's just kill him. And everybody went, And then that's where it went. But
Right.
yeah, to answer your question on that, yeah. But as far as going to the darker stuff, even at some of her darkest moments, Wonder Woman's not a dark character.
You're right. Exactly.
Same,
Exactly.
same thing with Aquaman. Aquaman is put into some dark situations, especially if he's messing with the trench people.
Mhm.
But it's not a dark character.
Right. He really, those two characters above all are, uh, I guess, the more positive. And I would say next to Superman, they're the brightest, most heroic.
I'd say so too.
Yeah, because I see Cyborg as a tragic character to a point,
To a point.
and then Batman, of course. What do you want? I mean, it's pretty. Come on. But the funny thing about it is, and just so and like I said, we've had these conversations going back a decade.
Oh God,
But
yes, and they're always fun.
they're always fun. For me, at Christmas time and on my birthday, my mom and now my daughter does too. They know. They ask me what I want. I say, I don't care. I don't want nothing. I got everything I need. Just give me some comic books. Okay, so they'll get comic books. They don't know what they're getting. But it's so funny because I always get it, and I know I'm not going to have any of the issues around these particular issues. If it's a Marvel comic, I read it, and it's not hard for me to figure out probably what happened before, probably where it's headed. Okay, that's fine. If it's a DC, it's a different thought process because I'll read it and not have the dangest clue about anything that's going on except that one. And it causes me to have to think more, and it's a different kind of fun. They're both fun in a different way. So in DC, really, I mean, it's I guess, well, they're the granddaddy, the godfather when it comes to comics in this country.
They are. They were the first.
They were the first. Without DC, there'd be no Marvel.
And to me, and we've had, just like you just said, we've had this conversation 1,000 times over the last decade. Mm-hmm. To me, the DC stories are a whole lot better than the Marvel stories. But as far as the movies goes, Marvel took it up a notch. And where DC was setting the tone with the first Richard Donner Superman, Marvel has basically took that over. Now they're setting the tone.
I think Christopher Nolan did a very, very big disservice the DC film franchise because he insisted that his Batman not be part of any expanded universe. It's just the Batman universe. If that had not been the case, they had a head start on Marvel with Batman Begins, and it was good films. They could have built from there, and they would be leading the pack, not Marvel.
If you ask me, if it wasn't for Christopher Nolan's trilogy, you probably wouldn't have had the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Mm-hmm.
He showed you can do it, and it not be a Green Lantern. You can do it.
In all honesty, that movie was not that bad.
It wasn't. I don't understand. I was entertained, and I felt like they kept to the comic pretty close.
I thought so too. I mean, like I said, it wasn't the greatest in the world, but this is probably going to get me some hate, but I'm going to say it anyway. I enjoyed that Green Lantern movie better than I enjoyed this latest Shazam.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to agree with you.
I thought that it was a good origin movie.
The worst part about the Green Lantern film to me was the villain.
Same.
I felt like they could have done better. The guy with the big head that I can't remember who he was.
I can't remember his name either.
But it was just it was going well, and then he kind of made it silly.
He did, but I did. The reason why I say it was a good origin film, without the main villain in the first one, to bring the fear, you wouldn't have had Sinestro. That was how they introduced Sinestro. And whenever I seen him put that yellow ring on, I was sitting there going, "Oh boy, the next movie is going to be real good."
Oh yeah, and they had the guy playing Sinestro was perfect.
Yeah,
he was to a T.
Yeah. And I thought Ryan Reynolds, honestly, is a good Hal Jordan.
Yeah, I do too.
I really thought he was. And
Yeah, a cosmic Boy Scout, basically.
yeah, they've got to bring Green Lantern back. They really do.
Yeah.
How are you going to have a Justice League without Green Lantern? That's like having a Justice League without Batman or Superman.
Green Lantern. I'm surprised how they seem to have kind of just tried to avoid. I don't know. I don't understand why that, because Green Lantern would be huge if it done right.
Yeah. My humble opinion, it needs to be Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
It don't need to be Stewart or the other ones. It needs to be Hal Jordan.
I agree. He's the most recognized Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm. And if you bring him back, look at some of the other stories that you can tell. Darkest Night. What is it? Darkest, Whitest Night or something like that?
Something like that.
I can't. I feel like an idiot now. But that was a humongous story that brought in all of the other lanterns.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just green and yellow.
You have the Lantern Wars.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot there to that. I wish they would, because but they just, at some point, DC will hit their stride. Once they get past the Ray Fisher issues, the Zack Snyder issues, oh God, who even knows? Ben Affleck's sobered up. Robert Pattinson.
That trailer actually looks decent.
Dude, I'm going to tell you, I'm a big fan of the film Seven, and I got a very much a Seven vibe from that trailer. You know, the serial, I mean, it looks like it's going to be raw, just absolutely raw. You know, in a way how Nolan tried to make Batman more street level believable.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to make it even more into the reality.
I still say, and this is probably going to get me some heat too, if Nolan had put the effort into Superman that he put into Batman, we wouldn't even hardly be talking about Batman.
No, we wouldn't be talking about Batman.
You know, I me as a Superman fan actually felt cheated whenever it was Snyder doing the Man of Steel.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest with you, because after seeing what Nolan did with the Dark Knight series, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for him to get a hold of Superman. It won't just be Lex Luthor. We won't have to see Smallville again. He'll just jump right into Brainiac or some of these other fantastic villains that Superman has, because that's all you see with Superman movies, and it just pisses me off.
Yeah, it gets old, man. It gets old.
The best part to me about the Justice League movie, and this is really going to sound like a prick move, but whenever they arrest Superman, to me, that was the best thing. Whenever he reached and grabbed Batman, pulled him up in the air and said, "Do you bleed?"
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. That was a great part.
Yeah.
DC seems to have a problem being stuck on origins.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to keep retelling all their origins.
Yeah, they do. And I'm not knocking Batman. I'm really not. He's my number 2 character. And I can understand how people think Superman is a Boy Scout or whatever. But if you do more digging into the comics, you'll see he's no Boy Scout.
He's a killer.
Yeah, he is.
Compared to Batman, he's a killer.
Yeah, he's killed a whole lot more people than Batman has. He just does his best, as much of a godlike figure that he is. He's the most alien, one of the most alien things about the DC universe. But yet, even in Batman's own words, he's the most human of us all.
Right.
I feel like I relate more to Superman than I do to Batman. It's not just because I grew up a huge Superman fan. I grew up a huge Superman fan. I grew up a big Batman fan. I grew up watching Aquaman ride the seahorse on the cartoons. That was the movie that I never thought I'd ever see on film. I never in my life thought I'd see Aquaman on screen. And in all honesty, that's, as of right now, that's still my favorite DC movie. I thought that it was played, at least in this era, because I thought that it was very much comic based.
To me, their most creative triumph was Aquaman.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could not see him past being blonde haired, wearing an orange shirt, and swimming. I couldn't see past that.
I'll be honest with you. I had an issue with Jason Momoa being Aquaman because I grew up watching just like you just said, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy playing Aquaman. I always thought that if he had lived, Paul Walker would have been an excellent Aquaman.
Oh man, he would have been great.
You know,
he would have been great.
But at the same time, it was kind of like Heath Ledger playing Joker. I laughed, and you remember this because we worked together. I laughed my head off whenever I heard Ledger was playing Joker.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be the first one to tell you, I was beyond shocked. I didn't think he could pull that off. Just being real with you. You know, I thought Momoa embraced the character, and I thought he did a fantastic job. From now until the day I die, he is Aquaman to me.
Oh, me too. Me too. He redefined that character.
Yes, he did. Props to him on that, as good as he did. And I thought that Aquaman movie was a very good origin movie for him. I'm very excited to see where he goes from here on out with that, because he is flat out said, I want to do it as often as I can. He's very committed to the character.
Right.
The only one that's in question is what's her name? The redhead. She got into a little bit of a legal issue.
She really took a beating at first. It looked like it was all her. But then when Depp took her to court in Britain, everything had to come out in testimony. And it wasn't all her. He played a big role in a lot of it. So I think to a certain point, that's done a little bit of rehab to her image, but I don't know if it's enough.
Well, at one point in time, there was a huge petition to get her removed. I don't know if Warner Brothers is actually going to stand by her or not. We'll see how that goes. You know,
we'll see how it goes.
It's kind of the same situation that James Gunn was in over a tweet.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, they could end up running into this same thing with Ezra Miller because there's film footage of him choking a lady on an elevator. And that's not come up yet. But if they proceed with the Flashpoint movie, which I have my doubts will ever get made, they've been talking about that movie for years. You know, I don't know.
I would like to see it, but at the same time, what have you got to reset right now? You see where DC's nowhere near ready for a Flashpoint movie.
No.
My eyes.
I kind of thought with the Wonder Woman movie, they might reset things a little bit. I thought, man, maybe that's where they're going with this stone thing. But that wasn't the case.
No. I thought it was a time set movie. I don't think that it's necessarily it's still part of like in my opinion, still part of like a little origin setup deal. Kind of like the first one was. You're learning more about the character. They introduced two villains. So we'll see how it goes from here.
Right.
I'm really hopeful that Warner Brothers and DC can get their act together. But, time will tell. And I think the more that they go on with everything, and as we go through all of this other stuff, maybe they can get back to shooting and writing and everything like that.
Well, one thing's for sure.
Ain't nothing for sure.
Ain't nothing. Yeah, one thing's for sure, ain't nothing for sure. But if they make the movies, me and you gonna see them. We're gonna watch them. We're gonna watch them.
You dadgum right. We either gonna go share some popcorn or we're gonna be sharing a streaming service. Oh, did I say that out loud?
Now I don't know what he's talking about.
That's all the time we have for this episode. Please like the page and join the group on Facebook at Porch Matters Podcast. Please subscribe or follow us on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, or the platform of your choice so you don't miss an episode. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcast, please rate the show and leave us a review if you have the time. Thank you very much for listening, and catch us next time right here on Porch Matters.